Half-Life 3. Some view it as the holy grail of gaming, the thing that it's all building to, and some people kinda just want to know how the story ends. But is that something we can actually realistically expect to happen at some point? Half-Life has been a series of cliffhangers, and while recent developments imply it maybe would have simply stayed that, so who knows? Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, we ask the question, is it time to stop caring about Half-Life 3?
Rise and shine, Mr. Freeman. Rise and shine.
Now before I start, I want to say this right off. I'm not asking you to stop caring about Half-Life. I'm not asking you to say, hey, this story doesn't matter to me anymore, because it does matter to a lot of people, myself included. I love the Half-Life games. They did so much for storytelling and narrative within the confines of a first-person shooter that they have irrevocably changed how video games are made and how storytelling happens. Were it not for Half-Life, the more seamless style of storytelling present in these games may have taken a lot longer to develop organically. I enjoy the characters, Gordon Freeman, Alex Vance, the various cast of characters from her father to that shady-ass G-Man character. Everybody brings a lot of charm to the table, and although nobody is perfect in these games, I'm not trying to imply that any of them are, they're interesting characters, including Gordon Freeman. So I say this all with reverence for Half-Life. I'm not attempting to take Half-Life down. Half-Life, in my opinion, is, well, it's a massive stepping stone in gaming itself, and it deserves a lot of credit for what it is. So let's talk about exactly what Half-Life is. Half-Life 1 is a traditional game. Half-Life 2 is also a traditional game. They have beginnings, middles, and endings, and both end on a semi-cliffhanger thanks to the G-Man. The second one ends on significantly more of a cliffhanger than the first, but at every point we understand that there is going to be ongoing conflict. Now, after Half-Life 2's completion, Valve continued to work on it as if they were working on another game. They called the Half-Life 2 episodes expansion packs, but later Gabe Newell said, in all actuality, Half-Life 2 episodes 1 and 2 are essentially Half-Life 3, and that they should have named them Half-Life 3 Episode 1 and Half-Life 3 Episode 2 instead of Half-Life 2. That was in 2006 though, back when everybody assumed that there was going to be an Episode 3 because that's how they announced it. The episodic arc was to be a 3-episode one with a conclusion coming in the 3rd episode, which, you know, is essentially a full game, a 3-act story, one that we haven't gotten the 3rd act of in the last decade. Half-Life 2 Episode 2 was released in 2007. That's a long time, and it's starting to kind of seem like it's never gonna happen. Mark Laidlaw, the gentleman who wrote Half-Life, Half-Life 2, and the 2 Half-Life 2 episodes, retired. He doesn't work at all anymore. And that wasn't recently, that was in January 2016, so about a year and a half ago. Probably the best way to figure out what happened to Half-Life 2 Episode 3 is to have a look at an Episode 4 that was being developed by Arcane Studios. Arcane was working on an episode called Return to Ravenholm, and Mark Laidlaw, the gentleman I just mentioned that retired, gave an interview in 2012 where he did say that Arcane, yes, was working on the project and that it was a real project, but it was canceled not because of any failure or anything like that, but Valve actually decided it didn't make sense to continue pursuing. In an interview published on Arcade Attack on July 17, 2017, Laidlaw said his intention was to always have a cliffhanger at the end, to always leave Gordon Freeman in stasis waiting for the next game. And there's a very video game-y quality to that, and I don't mean like new school storytelling, I mean old school video games. The reset so the sequel can come out. And I think that this offers an interesting bit of proof towards the idea that Valve simply finds everything involving Half-Life to be redundant. They've already done Half-Life, they've already done Half-Life 2, and in a lot of cases, they probably feel as if they don't have much else to say within the environment of Half-Life. And this is probably especially true given the lead voice of Half-Life, the creator of the stories, the writer, is a retiree now. But here's the thing. Valve claims to be this flatly organized company without a vertical hierarchy in which anybody can say anything and it means as much as anybody else. And there's a lot of people, both inside Valve and outside Valve, that seem pretty convinced that this is exactly how things work there. There's something that people who believe that wholeheartedly don't understand though. Somebody signs the checks. Gabe Newell has $4.1 billion. And you know what? It's fine if he wants to listen to his employees. Gabe Newell has the power in the company, whether anybody in the company wants to admit it or not. He may be better about that power than a lot of other companies are, but he does have $4.1 billion. And that puts him in a different position than everybody else in the company, period. So why am I bringing this up? Well, Valve hires people, and those people probably want to work at Valve for certain reasons, not specifically that Steam is cool. Steam is a great platform, and it has objectively made PC gaming significantly better in making mod framework easier, in forming a sense of community that was difficult to cobble together prior, and most importantly, in making PC gaming accessible. This stuff is all good, but I sincerely doubt anybody likes Steam in the same way they like HalfLife. What I'm saying is that somebody who's gotten hired in to Valve Software sometime in the last decade, in fact probably more than one person, has been a big fan of HalfLife and has wanted more Half-Life. And if the Valve hierarchy is as it purports itself to be, that person has free run of everyone to try to convince everyone to make another Half-Life. And you want to tell me that nobody in the last decade likes Half-Life enough to do a third one or even just a third episode and has a decent case to present as to why? You're telling me nobody in a decade? No, there's a reason why they aren't making Half-Life 3 or Half-Life 2 Episode 3. It's odd to me that leaving story threads unfinished leaves us with vague comments about how things are redundant and they don't want to keep doing it. That doesn't sound like something that a bunch of people who love a game series and got involved in a game developer, would do. In being entirely fair to Valve, though, they do keep very busy with Dota 2 and Counter-Strike Go, which are, by the way, the largest games on Steam, and they are actively developing these things. Just like Rockstar is actively developing Grand Theft Auto Online. There's a certain level of maintenance as well as bug fixing and feature adding, just stuff that makes it continue to be valuable to play these things with two very large properties that have a lot of people playing them. But still, I find it just a bit difficult to believe that nobody at all, and especially not a group of people within Valve, has said, you know what, we really need to finish this Half-Life story. Like, there are a lot of people that want to know what happens. It shocks me that that hasn't happened. It just doesn't seem likely to me. Now, Valve is currently working on 3 VR projects, apparently, and I'm sure there's plenty up their sleeves as well. But there's actually a positive thing you can take from the fact there is not the thing that the fans want. Whatever Valve has been doing for all this time, it hasn't been doing what everybody complains about in the gaming industry, which is endless sequels that don't develop anything new and only exist specifically to make money. If there's one thing you can say that Valve definitely isn't doing, it's that. So is it time to stop caring about Half-Life 3? Well, whether Valve is entirely honest about how it organizes its company and it comes out entirely flat, which I'll be honest, I consider a little bit unlikely, or that it operates as more of a kind of flat hierarchy, but bearing in mind that Gabe Newell has $4.1 billion, he probably has more power than other people, even if those other people don't want to admit it to themselves. And just this year, Gabe Newell said that because he was involved in so many of the decisions of the games, that it's hard for him to look at them as anything other than a series of things he regrets. He likes the games that they have done that he had less involvement in himself. So if he does actually hold some degree of control, he's probably not looking at Half-Life with rose-colored glasses and wanting to dive into the nostalgia pool. But they did announce that they have a new IP coming in the form of a fully single-player game that takes place in the Half-Life Portal universe. So it's not as if that world is dead, and it's not as if the dream of Valve being the kind of developer that creates these incredibly compelling experiences, that's not dead either. But Valve makes so much money, they are not beholden to anybody. They take 30% off of every transaction on Steam, and, well, that's just an obscene revenue flow on its own. Not to mention the fact that they have the 2 most popular multiplayer games on Steam, that people still buy Half-Life 1 and 2 and the episodic content, and the fact that people are still talking about Half-Life 3 means it's really hard for me to say that you should stop caring about it. Regardless of how Valve operates, they still operate within a system that works on supply and demand, and the demand is there. If people stopped caring about Half-Life 3, that would be when you should stop caring about Half-Life 3. And I understand that since people still care about Half-Life 3, you should still care about Half-Life 3 is circular logic, but that's probably the only way there's ever gonna be one, or anything else that happens as a Half-Life game in that universe. So yeah, if you like Half-Life and you want it to conclude, you should still care about it. What do you think? Do you think it's still worth caring about? Are you angry there still isn't a Half-Life 3, or are you kind of at peace with it? Leave us a comment, and if you enjoyed this video, please click like. If you're not subscribed, now would be a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos all the time. The best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero, and we'll see you next time right here on gameranx.